Hello, everyone. Today we have Marco Ensler from BCP. So, Marco, please introduce yourself and let us know what team you're part of.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for inviting me for this talk. So, I'm a student at University of Zurich, and I started working for BCP in spring. I'll do this as part of my bachelor's thesis, and I was assigned to the accounting, taxes, and legal team. So currently in this team, we're assessing the legal situation for BCP, and we're kind of trying to bring together the dynamic, fast-changing, innovative, and to some extent almost lawless wasteland of blockchain with our strict financial regulation. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So there's a lot to uncover there, but let me start with something relevant. What is an ICO? I think that's a burning question of a lot of people today. And what is the connection between an ICO and, let's say, tokenization?
Well, I think to understand what an ICO is, we first have to understand what a coin or a token is. So I usually use those terms interchangeably, even though there's a slight difference.
See, that's confusing for a lot of people, but it's good to know tokens and coins are synonymous.
Almost, okay. Yeah, but I'll use it synonymous.
Let's have that conversation for some other day. So let's focus. Okay, right. So let's focus back on tokens and ICO. Yeah.
Well, so basically, a token is a digitally represented right that is recorded on the blockchain and therefore visible for anyone connecting on the chain. Now, a token. Let's make an example. So many years ago, people would fund a company and they need money. So they would print shares on paper and hand those papers out to people who gave them money. Mm-hmm. And this paper would then symbolize your share in the company. Mm-hmm. So for the token, it's quite a similar idea actually, that whoever holds this token is the owner of your company or the share of your company. So, of course, this cannot only be done with a company or with shares. This can basically be done with any object. Sure. You can set up cryptocurrencies if you get enough people into believing that this cryptocurrency actually has some value. You can do it with basically every right of possession.
So it's basically money in the digital space. Would that be okay to say?
Not only money, but basically anything that has value can be represented through this token. Okay. So now coming back to your question about the ICO itself, the ICO is basically the event in which we first publicly offer those tokens. So say you have tokenized your company and you're first going to publicly sell them. The name initial coin offering can be a little bit misleading because, it implies something with a coin with money. But actually it's not exactly that.
Okay. So can you talk about different types of tokens that are known to us in the community of blockchain?
Sure. So basically, everything that you can imagine can be made into a token. You need to program it, of course, but the thing is we need to deal with it in real life as well. So many authorities try to come up with frameworks which have similar approaches on how to categorize those tokens. And as we're located in Switzerland, let's have a look at what the Swiss Financial Market Supervisory Authority, FINMA, does. And they basically distinguish 4 different types of tokens, which are asset tokens, utility tokens, payment tokens, and what they called hybrid tokens. Now, payment tokens are, of course, known as cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ether, you name it. As the name suggests, they are used as means of payment. They are intended to be used like fiat money. They're probably getting most recognition from outside the blockchain community, as it has the potential to change our lives in some way or another. Then for utility tokens, that's a bit something harder to understand. They are intended to give you access to a platform or a service, always connected with the blockchain infrastructure. What is important here, holders of utility tokens do not expect any return on their investment. They just want to use their token. Now the asset tokens, well, as you can hear, they cover all sorts of assets. I made the example with shares. You could also tokenize bonds or derivatives. It's usually tokens where a holder expects or at least hopes for an increase in value, so it's really an investment. And hybrid tokens, they're somewhat different. They're a mixture of those three categories. So, for instance, you could think of a utility token giving you access to a service which at the same time can be used as means of payment for certain other services.
Okay, there's a lot to wrap your head around, but maybe giving examples where payment, utility, and asset tokens are applicable in different scenarios would help. And in other words, which types of institutions would each of these tokens be used?
Well, let's start again with the payment token. I think that is pretty much straightforward. So, yeah, let me take the example of Bitcoin. You can use them to pay in shops or whatever for food, groceries, whatever. Asset tokens, as I said, they're kind of the same. They're pretty much, they have pretty much the same function as their real life equivalents. So they can be physical or non-physical assets. You can use them for securities. You could even tokenize a building. So let's say you take a house and tokenize it, representing it by 100 tokens, and then selling the tokens individually, meaning that even small investors on low budget can buy their part of a project, of a promising project. You could do the same for paintings, watches. I think there's even one company that does wine, and so that's the speculative nature.
Okay.
Again, for the utility token, that's a bit harder because utility tokens often do not have clear definitions. So they can have characteristics from asset tokens or payment tokens. But one very simple example could be that you try to set up your mobile game or computer game or whatever, and in order to fund it you need money. So you give out those utility tokens and people buy it with the expectation of using them later. So once the game is finished, they can use their tokens to buy in-game objects, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. And you also mentioned something called a hybrid token. So what types of organizations would go for a hybrid token?
Well, hybrid token can basically be everything. So just think of a combination of a utility token and an asset token. So let's say every user you have on your page using your services is at the same time also a shareholder. So no user would have any incentive to harm the whole system because that would be reflected in their own asset. So at the same time, the shareholder or every shareholder would probably also be users. And if you have to make strategic decisions, where of course shareholders are involved, they know the business, they know the deal, they know the environment, and that could be very useful for companies.
Okay, so you're saying that a lot of the newer upcoming digital companies are going to be using a lot of hybrid tokens, have the potential to use hybrid tokens a lot.
They have a huge potential. The point is, from a legal perspective, they are not that easy to handle, but yep, sure, if you find a way around with all the financial laws and regulations, that could work, yeah.
Yeah, I think with more time, the laws surrounding these things is going to be a bit more clear. So I think that would be a good transformation point for companies like this. So, is there a type of tokenization that BCP is targeting or thinking about?
Yeah, we're currently investigating the possibility to give out equity token. We call them equity token because they're basically traditional shares, and we're trying to add some features such that we can combine the advantages of blockchain with all the financial laws, with, of course, with investor protection, with company law. Yeah, there's quite a lot of regulations, as I said, you have to fulfill, but yeah, let's see where we will end.
Okay. I want to veer into a topic that's a bit specific. So, the conversation we've had, we're touching upon some things that are relevant today and might be termed as NFTs in a way. So, how would you link tokenization to NFT?
Well, again, I think to answer that question, we have to understand what NFTs essentially are. So the tokens that we discussed right now, they're interchangeable, meaning that one token is as good as any other token. So it doesn't matter which share, which equity token you hold. It's not important which one it is. Now, for those non-fungible tokens, this whole aspect or this whole environment changes because they are intended, designed, programmed to have a limited number. So often there's even only one single token, which is unique. And of course, you can use that to assess ownership, clear ownership over something, an object, for instance. So let's say you have a digital object, a video or a piece of music, or anything that's out there. These ownership rights can be tokenized and can be sold, of course. So again, returning to the gaming industry, let's think of a computer game where you have lots of different pieces of equipment, and some are more common, so some are rare. And let's just assume that there's one single object that's only once, and you could actually tokenize that and sell it in-game.
So something miraculous happened in some game, or something that a lot of gamers or a lot of the people who are involved in this community really respect or really love to be, let's say like virtually. So in that case, that could be an NFT. That's what I'm thinking of. So something unique, something that is valued by a lot of people, but it's solely in the digital world.
Currently, yes. I mean, there are some ideas that you could also apply it to real-life objects, but currently it's only on online objects. There's even a game who actually did that. Where you can collect those very unique characters and stuff. Yeah.
So there's another version of NFTs coming up. That thing they're called dynamic NFTs. So what's the difference between both of them? So the static versus dynamic NFTs.
Well, the static NFTs, they are designed in such a way that they are set up once and that they do not evolve. So once they're out there, they just stay as they are. Now, the dynamic NFTs, the idea behind them is to adopt them to real life proceedings. So again, let's make an example. So say that you're...
Examples are the best way to understand something.
So think of a game where you have to, again a game, but where you have to collect different sorts of characters. And now those characters are linked to real life people. So for example, if you're a fan of soccer, you could actually use soccer players as an example. Mm-hmm. Now in the static NFT world, you would have the original stats and they just stay as they are. Yeah. Now in the dynamic world, of course, those stats could be adopted. So if a player performs extremely well, his stats would go up. Mm-hmm. If someone, scores an own goal or whatever, his stats would go down. Okay. So that's an interesting part of it, but it's not really used yet. But let's see.
I see it coming. It's like when I was younger, I used to collect, I don't know, Pokemon cards or something. It's like if I had Pokemon cards that was updating all the time, that would be great. So do you feel oracles would play a good role in the advent of both the static and dynamic NFTs?
Well, for the static NFTs, they are, of course, useful in the sense that only oracles can provide or can get those randomness from outside the blockchain, which you need to verify NFTs. For dynamic, it's even more useful because, of course, you have to bring those real-life events on the blockchain. So say, as I said, the soccer player who shoots 7 goals in one match. Somehow you have to bring that onto the blockchain, and that's where oracles will play with. Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Because I've exhausted my questions. So if you have any other things to say,
I think we've covered the topic quite broadly. So
I'm going to think about this all day and try to digest this. But this is all from my end. Thanks a lot.
Thanks to you.